There are moments in life we never get to finish. Dinners left uneaten, goodbyes left unsaid, words that linger in the air long after someone is gone. This is, if I could say one more thing, a podcast where we revisit those moments, giving voice to what was left behind. Through stories inspired by real people, we explore love, loss, and the conversations that still live quietly inside us. Because sometimes, even if we can't go back, we can still find peace in imagining what might have been said if only we had had one more moment. What would you say if you could share one more meal with someone you've lost? In today's story, The Dinner I Never Had, Emma imagines sitting down to dinner with her brother Sam, years after his passing. What folds is not a haunting, but a homecoming. A conversation filled with humor, regret, and the kind of love that survives even the sharp edges of grief. This is a story about siblings, about the invisible threads that tie us together long after the chair across from us is empty, and about learning to stay a little longer, even when the meal is over. The waiter sets down 2 menus, though I'm the only one sitting here. This is the kind of place where they lower the lights as if you're attending a small funeral for your appetite, and the forks weigh more than a normal fork should. I glance at the empty chair across from me, and I can see him already, my brother, arriving late with an apology preloaded in his grin. A man who never learned to enter a room without performing a minor miracle of charm. "Wow," he'd say, shrugging off in an invisible jacket. "You brought me to a restaurant that has spoons I could do bicep curls with." "Hello, Sam," I say to the air, and the air says nothing back, which is both expected and rude. A busser offers water. "Sparkling or still?" "Sparkling," I say. "Still," Sam says, which is typical. "We'll do both," I tell the busser, and the young man looks relieved, as if he's narrowly avoiding taking sides in a marriage he has just learned he is part of. The things about siblings is that you don't invite just one to dinner. You invite every version of yourselves you once were. The year he pierced his ear in our upstairs bathroom using a potato and a lighter. The summer I decided I was a poet and carried a notebook covered in duct tape and despair. The winter we slept head to foot when the heat failed and told each other ghost stories that we ourselves became. I open my menu. "They have your favorite," I say. "Anything that can be fried and then fried again." He leans back in his chair. A smirk floats across the table like a paper boat. "Don't judge me. I like food with a past. I like food that's had to survive something." I didn't say a word. "You didn't have to," he taps the menu. "Also, aren't you the one who wrote an essay comparing a croissant to a cloud that learned to bear weight?" I was going through something. You were going through butter, he said. The waiter arrives, and I order the Brussels sprouts with charred lemon and the trout that promises to have been treated with more respect than I reserve for myself on bad days. Sam orders the burger and fries. No truffle oil, none of that preciousness. And a beer with a label featuring a bear on a unicycle. He always chooses the beer with the most narrative. We sit there as the restaurant invents its evening around us. On our right, a couple negotiating a treaty about the appropriate date to meet parents. On our left, a man eats alone, scrolling his phone, making his loneliness pinch and zoom. Remember family dinners? Sam asks, his eyebrows raising as if the memories are a punchline he's about to deliver. He's so present, it's unbelievable. I can see the shade of his stubble, the cracked knuckle from when he split wood badly and refused to see a doctor because, what will they do? Doctor the wood? Of course, I say. You inhaled your food like you were trying to keep it safe from the air. That's because Mom stole fries off our plates, like we were all in a prison experiment. That wasn't stealing, I say. That was sampling. That was looting. He folds his hands over nothing, and I can feel the familiar tension, the warmth of arguing over something unimportant when what you really want to do is ask each other for absolution. This is what we were best at. Jokes, as scaffolding around the tower where we kept our softer selves. Our Brussels sprouts arrive, lit from within by lemon. Sam makes a show of sniffing them as if I've asked him to eat a scented candle. We shared them anyway. We were always sharers. Of rooms, of genes, of culpability. You can survive a lot if you survive it together. Do you ever wonder, I ask, if the way we ate was the way we lived? You quick and decisive, me slow and careful, cutting everything into symmetrical halves, as if that would balance the day. He snorts. Oh boy, here comes the metaphor. I knew you couldn't keep it down. I'm serious, I say. I think we learned to ration not just food, but attention, praise, safety. We learned to rush or hoard. Okay, Professor. He wipes a make-believe smear from his lips. If that's true, what did we learn to do with love? The question slips under the table and grabs my ankle. I feel it in the simple animal part of me that knows when something has teeth. Compete for it, I say finally. We turn love into a race. He considers this, nodding slowly. We did. A dumb one, like running with two different maps and then getting mad the finish lines didn't match. The waiter appears with the mains. The trout arrives wearing a silk gown of herbs. Sam's burger is indecent, the kind of burger that requires an apology to the napkin. Did you ever think, he says, lifting the top bun and peering at what's underneath, as if the burger has secrets, that maybe competing was easier than, I don't know, admitting anything else? Like fear? I laugh, and it sounds like it always did when we made each other laugh. A release valve. You were never afraid. He raises an eyebrow. Says the person who never noticed I switched school 3 times because I couldn't breathe in rooms with more than 20 people in them. I set down my fork. The room shifts a fraction of a degree. The couple on the right laughs at a story. The man on the left has found something on his phone he wants to show someone. It is very hard to keep eating when you realize the stories you tell yourself about your family were written in pencil. You didn't tell me, I say. You didn't ask, he says, but his tone is gentle. It was our old choreography. He would toss the first stone and then build a house out of it for me to live in. I'm asking now, I say, and I am. I am asking everything I should have asked when his number still worked. I'm asking with my whole face, the part that can still move. He looks at his hands. He always had beautiful hands, nicked and purposeful, capable of fixing a hinge and folding a story into 5 minutes on the back steps. I was scared all the time, he says. I learned to run toward the noise before the noise ran toward me. It looks brave from the outside. From the inside, it's just running. I reach for my water. It tastes like the absence of anything else. Do you remember the year you told me I was adopted? I ask, grasping for something lighter, one of our old rubber dinghies. He grins. And you cried, and then you made a case for why another family might be better anyway. They'll have a fridge that's always full, you said. They'll have a dog that comes when it's called. We did have a dog that came when it was called, I say. He just came on his own schedule. He respected himself. We eat, or rather, I eat, and Sam performs the pantomime of eating that memory allows. Still, he wipes his mouth, chews, reaches for the beer I have ordered for him, lifts it to his lips, swallows. Memory has its own cutlery. It can serve up a taste you haven't had in years so precisely your whole body registers the receipt. You still mad at me? He asks, not looking at me. For what? Pick one, he says, the word already lined up. For missing your birthday that year? For not calling when I said I would? For borrowing your car and bringing it back with fewer mirrors? For saying something I thought was funny that you thought was cruel? I'm not mad, I say. I'm disappointed, he says, finishing a sentence he knows too well. God, you weaponized that word. I learned it from Dad. Yeah, he concedes. Our Father, the benevolent judge, he who art in a lazy boy. We smile. The smile is a hammock strung between us, holding us over the ravine. Do you ever think, Sam says, and his voice drops, steps off the curb and crosses the street to seriousness, that we were two halves of a single instinct? You slowed things down so they wouldn't hurt. I sped them up so they couldn't catch me. Neither of us got it quite right. We got each other, I say, and I'm surprised at myself for saying it. It sounds like something he would have said, turning sentiment into a small, manageable joke. But it's true. For all our misfires, we were each other's field rations. Okay, he says, leaning in, as if the table is a conspiracy we're both in on. Here's something I never told you. You know how you always said you envied me for not caring what people thought? Yes, I say, rolling my eyes. It was annoying. I cared what you thought, he says. Just you. Everyone could leave the room. If you laugh, I was fed. If you didn't, I was starving. I look at my plate. A fish's worth of honesty sits there, lemony and tender. I did laugh, I say, most of the time. He shakes his head. His hair does that thing it always did when it falls into his eyes, like a shy animal, and then pretends it meant to be there. Most of the time, he echoes. Not the time that mattered. The restaurant hums. The ceiling seems lower. I know the time he means. I know it the way you know where the light switches are in your childhood home, even when the power is out. A night, years ago, when he tried a joke that walked too close to a wound I was busy naming healed, and I didn't laugh. I looked at him the way you look at someone who has shown you a map to a place you're not willing to visit. He raised his glass to me across a backyard where the citronella candles made every mosquito a moral lesson. And I had given him nothing but the crown of my head as I looked down, cut my food smaller, made my life small enough to swallow. Sam, I start, and my voice is a hand on a doorknob. I want to open it and also leave it closed, if that makes any sense. It's fine, he says. We all have our tiny deaths. The desserts menu arrive. The waiter asks if we want coffee, and I say yes, as if I have years of sleep ahead of me to waste. Sam orders nothing and everything, which is his way. Do you ever wonder, I say, and I can hear myself slipping into the mode he used to accuse me of, the essay voice, the voice that turns the world into a thesis. Do you ever wonder what we owe each other as siblings? He tilts his head. I wonder why you ask that question like it has an answer. Because I want one, I say, quicker than I mean to. The truth outruns my intellect, vaults the fence. I want a list, so I can know when I did it and when I didn't. He thinks about this. He always took questions seriously, even the ones I should have asked 10 years sooner. Maybe we owe each other one thing, he says. One meal we don't leave early. I sit with that. It's ridiculous and perfect. A commandment you can write on a napkin. You left early, I say, not because I want to hurt him, but because something in me has to point to the exit and name it. He nods. I did. Why? The word breaks into 3 pieces and falls between us. Because I didn't know the kitchen would close. He looks up at me, honest, in the way only the dead can afford to be. Across the room, someone starts singing Happy Birthday. and everyone claps, and the birthday person looks mortified, which is the proper response to attention in public. I drink my coffee. It is bitter and forgiving. The dessert arrives. Slice of something olive oily and lemon bright, and we split it. Me with a fork, him with the audacity of memory. Tell me something true, he says, and he always wanted that from me, even when I had nothing to give but anecdotes dressed as truths. I was jealous of you, I say. Of what? Of how you could do nothing and it counted, I say. When I did nothing, it stood in the corner and took notes. When you did nothing, it became a story people wanted to hear. He laughs, delighted. That's absurd. You were the one with the good lines. I had lines, I say. You had timing. Timing, he repeats, tasting the word like a new spice. Yeah, mine was off in the end. We both bow our heads without meaning to. If there were grace to be said, we'd say it now. Bless us and these thy gifts, which we are about to receive, or fail to. Bless the rooms we leave before the conversation is over. Bless the calls we don't return because we'll call tomorrow. Bless tomorrow, that liar, that sieve. He breaks the silence. Do you remember that time in 5th grade when Mrs. Lively said you were a promising writer? He says it in a voice that manages to be both a tease and a trophy. I remember wanting to hide under my desk like a dust bunny. I remember thinking, okay, that's her thing. Then I have to be funny. He shrugs. It's dumb, right? Like the universe had 2 chairs and we picked them, and that was that. We could have switched, I say. We did, sometimes, he answers. You were funny on Tuesdays. I was sincere on Thursdays. We experimented. Our plates are clearing themselves by disappearing, the nice way. The evening leans against the wall and checks its watch. I can feel the part of the night where regular couples start whisper fights about Uber versus walking. It's time to ask the question you come to a dinner like this to ask, even if you pretend you arrived with nothing but appetite. I'm sorry, I say. For what? For not calling you back that last week? For assuming there would be more time, as if time were a pantry with labels and we could just pick another jar? He nods. I'm sorry for leaving you the worst parts of my mess to sort through. I always thought I was protecting you by not telling you the things I didn't like about my life. But it turns out the things you don't say are still heavy. Someone has to carry them. I would have carried them, I say. I know, he says. He looks away when he says it. A habit so ingrained, it survives even here. I didn't know how to hand them to you without dropping them on your foot. Did it hurt? I ask. And I hate myself for asking, as if this is the Q&A portion of loss, as if there is anything he could say that would make it better. Not the way you think, he says. It hurt the slow way, the way where the pain just gets promoted to manager. The check arrives, folded like a small paper truth. The waiter places it equidistant between the living and the loved, which is thoughtful of him. I slide my card in. I pay for the 2 dinners because it feels impolite not to. The waiter returns with a receipt, and I sign my name as if it is the last line of an apology I've been writing for years. I add a note, because I can't help myself. Thank you for the extra glass of water. It's ridiculous, and it's the only prayer I know how to say in public. We sit for a moment longer, the way people do when they are reluctant to return to whatever their lives were doing without them. Outside, the city does what it always does after 8. It pretends it has somewhere better to be than here. A woman in a red coat walks past, talking on her phone, saying, "No, listen, I'm not mad," which is the international signal for someone being mad. Before you go, I say, and the words are heavy with too many possible endings, tell me one thing I can keep. He thinks for a beat. Keep this, he says, and he makes a careful shape with his hands as if he's holding a small animal. Whenever you laugh and you think, I wish Sam had heard that, decide that I did. That's nothing, I say, wanting a relic, a saint's tooth, a contractual clause that says my missing you will be reciprocated somehow. It's everything, he says. It changes the room you're in. I nod, because arguing with the dead is bad manners. Also, he's right. He was born with that infuriating gift, being right in a way you can live with. We stand, or I do, and he does whatever it is he does when I leave. I tuck the chair in as if putting a child to bed. The napkin he didn't use sits on the table like a surrender flag. I cradle it, then stop. There are rules to this game, and one of them is take nothing. Another is leave fuller than you arrived, even if your stomach is only half convinced. On the sidewalk, the night organizes itself into chill and chatter. I can feel him beside me in the old way, half a step ahead, scanning, ready to make a joke out of anything sharp we might bump into. Stay with me, I say, like a kid walking past a cemetery. I always do, he says, like a brother who was always better at saying what would help than doing what would help. It's not his fault. He was human when it mattered. We walk, or I walk, and he narrates. He sees a billboard for a new streaming service and scolds it for existing. He sees a man playing the harmonica and tips him nothing but appreciation, which might be worth more tonight. He sees a dog the size of a throw pillow and compliments it on its self-esteem. At the corner, a bus exhales and pulls away, leaving me in a small cloud that smells like old pennies and effort. He stops, finally. He doesn't make a habit of goodbye. He prefers the Irish approach. Leave and let someone notice. One meal we didn't leave early, he says, repeating his own law back to me. You'll keep coming? I will, I say. January 6th, because it's tidy. It's the day after the holidays when the world is hung over on family and hope. January 6th, he says. I'll bring my best manners. Bring your worst jokes, I say. And there it is, the old currency. I'm rich for a second. Deal, he says. He goes the way he always goes. A hair out of place, a laugh he didn't finish, the smell of citrus and sin. I stand there until the night refocuses and I can make sense of distance again. When I finally look down at my hands, I'm holding nothing. The nothing is warm. And maybe that's enough. The sense that he was here, if only for one more walk, one more joke, one more goodbye left hanging in the air. I turned home, the city humming around me, and for a moment, the night feels less empty. One meal we didn't leave early. At least, not this time. And that was The Dinner I Never Had, a story written for Emma. Though, as always, names and details have been changed to protect privacy. In this imagined dinner, she finally has the chance to say the things she never could. To listen, to laugh, to forgive. Now we'll hear from Emma herself as she shares what it was like to hear Sam's voice again through this story, and how it felt to sit, if only in words, across from her brother one more time. Emma, thank you so much for inviting me into this memory and letting me write a story for you. I'm really curious, when you first heard it, what was it like to listen to Sam come alive in this imagined dinner?
It was surreal, really. I mean, you wrote it, but I could see him there, his smirk, the way he argued just to argue. It felt like he pulled out the chair and sat down across from me again. It was emotional, but also comforting, because you caught him so well.
That means a lot. I tried to weave in those sibling details, the teasing, the joking, the tenderness underneath. Did you feel like I captured the essence of your relationship with Sam?
Yeah, you did. I could hear his voice in some of those lines. The whole thing about him ordering the burger, no truffle oil. That was so him. He hated anything that felt fancy. And the way he'd use humor to cut through things. Yeah, that was exactly how he was.
So tell us a little bit about him. What kind of brother was Sam when you two were growing up?
He was the classic older brother, equal parts protector, but also tormentor. He teased me, pushed my buttons constantly. But he also had my back. If anyone else gave me a hard time, he would step in.
Mm-hmm.
He was larger than life in some ways, but also deeply human.
What was his laugh like? I kept wondering that as I wrote.
Oh, his laugh. His laugh, it was loud, but, not in the obnoxious way. It kind of filled the room. He had this habit of throwing his head back when he laughed, like he couldn't keep it contained. And, once he started, you just couldn't help but laugh with him.
In the story, there's that undercurrent of competition. Love as a race, almost. Did that ring true for you and Sam?
Yeah, I guess we were always kind of vying for attention, for space. It's funny because when you're in it, it just feels normal. But looking back, I think we both wanted, reassurance from each other that we never quite managed to say out loud.
One of the moments that stayed with me while writing was Sam saying, maybe we owe each other one more thing. One meal we don't leave early. When you heard that, what did it mean for you?
It hit me pretty hard because he did leave early, far earlier than he should have. For me, that line is about presence, about not rushing through what we have, even the small, ordinary things. It's a reminder to stay, to linger, to really be there.
Can I ask, when you were listening, were there like any parts that felt especially Sam-like? Like, oh yes, that's exactly him.
Oh, absolutely. The way he teased about food, for example, or how'd he push back against me getting too serious? That line where he says, "Here comes the metaphor." I actually laughed through tears because that is so what he would have said to me.
And were there moments that felt harder? Maybe because they were close to things left unsaid between you?
Yes, the apology at the end. I mean, hearing "I'm sorry" in his voice, even imagined, well, I guess that kind of undid me because I never really got the chance. And then, my own apology back, those were the words I've carried for years. And to hear them spoken, even in this way, it gave me something I didn't know I needed.
Do you still talk to him sometimes?
I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, not out loud all the time, but sometimes I do. I'll say something into the quiet, especially when I'm laughing at something silly. I like to imagine he hears it, That feels like keeping him close.
That's powerful. Do you feel like the story gave you in some way of kind of closure, or maybe not closure, but space to keep the connection alive?
Yeah, exactly that. Not closure, because people we love aren't books you finish,
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones you keep on the shelf, and sometimes you open them again just to feel close. But it gave me a safe place to meet him again, to sit with him, to laugh with him. And that's a gift.
For people listening who maybe also have a sibling, or anyone really, that they never got to have the last dinner with, what would you want them to take away from your story?
I would say talk to them, talk to them anyway. Set the chair, pour that mug of coffee or prepare that cup of tea and say it out loud. It doesn't matter if no one answers. You'll feel the connection. And please don't beat yourself up for the words you didn't say, because the love was there. It still is.
Emma, thank you, really, for trusting me with Sam and for letting us glimpse your love for him through this story.
Thank you, Andrea. And I know I've said this to you before, but I just wanted to let you know that it really did feel like having him back, even if just for half an hour. And that's more than I could have hoped for.
Some stories remind us that grief doesn't ask for closure, it asks for company. Emma's story is one of those. It teaches us that love doesn't end with loss. It lingers in small gestures, a meal remembered, a laugh we still hear, a seat we still set at the table. When someone we love is gone, we often think of all the words we didn't say. But maybe love is not made out of words, but out of presence. The quiet decision to keep talking to them, even if no one answers. If this story touched something in you, if there's someone you still think about, or a conversation you wish you could have, maybe it's time to imagine it. Set the chair, pour the glass of water, speak into the quiet. And if you'd like me to help you give a voice to your story, you can write to SayOneMoreThingPod at gmail.com. Thank you for listening, for feeling, and for sitting with me at this table of unfinished stories. I'm Andrea Applewick, and this is If I Could Say One More Thing.